The remote clicked once, just once, and the sound sliced through the room like a warning shot. The television went black. Not paused, not muted, shut off. I didn't turn my head right away. I was sitting in the green velvet armchair by the window, the one place in the house where the late afternoon sun still found me. My hands rested on the arms of the chair. My tea was still warm. The news anchor's last word echoed faintly in my ears like a sentence cut in half. Behind me, someone exhaled loudly, impatient, annoyed, entitled. "You need to go to your room." The voice wasn't loud at first. It didn't need to be. It was practiced, comfortable, used to being obeyed. "This is the family room. I need it." I finally turned my head. Derek stood there, tall, blocking the television screen, with his body like he owned the wall itself. One hand still held the remote. The other was already reaching into the fridge behind him. My daughter Lena hovered a few steps back, half in the kitchen, half out. Her purse strap cut into her shoulder. Grocery bags sagged from her hands. She didn't look at me. She didn't look at him either. She looked at the floor. "Did you hear me?" Derek said, louder now. "Go to your room." Old woman wasn't the word he used yet, but it was coming. I'd learned to hear it before it landed. I studied him quietly. 38 years old, broad shoulders, corporate haircut. Expensive watch, bought with money that had never once passed through his hands. He smiled when I didn't move, the smile of someone who believed the house itself would back him up. "I've got a meeting," he added, "and the game after. I can't have background noise. You just sit there watching TV all day anyway." I shifted my gaze to Lena. Her knuckles were white around the grocery bag handles. I waited, not for an apology, not for drama, just for one sentence. "Don't speak to my mother like that." She swallowed, adjusted one bag, and stayed silent. Something inside me went very still, not anger, not heartbreak. Clarity. When you've worked 35 years in county records, you learn something important. Words fade, documents don't. I stood up, my knees cracked softly like paper being folded. Derek laughed under his breath. "Good, that's what I thought." I didn't respond. I walked past him, not to my bedroom, not to cry, not to hide, but to the dresser at the end of the hallway, the bottom drawer, the one nobody ever touched. Inside was a leather folder, stiff with age, edges worn smooth by time and certainty. I slid it out, feeling the familiar weight settle into my hands. Keys, papers, ownership. Behind me, the television clicked back on, the sports channel, volume up as if nothing had happened, as if I were furniture. I returned to the family room. Derek was already sprawled on the couch, shoes still on, can of soda sweating onto my coffee table. "My daughter," he shouted toward the kitchen, "why does the internet feel slow?" Lena rushed to answer. I walked straight to the front door. "Where are you going?" Derek asked, amused. "Don't get lost. At your age..." I opened the door, paused, looked once more at the room. The rug I vacuumed every Saturday. The framed Savannah riverfront print I bought myself. The armchair where I learned to sit quietly so others could feel loud. Then I stepped outside and closed the door behind me, not slammed, closed, like placing a period at the end of a sentence. The air was crisp, clear. I breathed in and felt something I hadn't felt in years. Space. I locked the gate from the outside, walked to the curb. A cab pulled up almost immediately. "Where to?" the driver asked. "The Grand Hyatt downtown," I said. He raised an eyebrow. I smiled. In the back seat, I took out my phone, scrolled, stopped. Andrew V. Sterling, attorney at law. We'd shared hallways for years. He handled disputes, I handled deeds. He answered on the second ring. "Celeste, it's nearly 9. Are you all right?" "No," I said calmly, "but I'm awake." A pause. "I need to evict 2 people." Another pause, longer. You live with your daughter. Yes, and her husband, yes? Silence, then quietly, is the house yours? I looked out the window at the passing lights. Yes. How long have they lived there? 4 years. Lease? No. Rent? No. Andrew exhaled slowly. Did something happen? He told me the living room was his, told me to go to my room. My daughter didn't speak. That was all I said. It was enough. I'll draft a notice to quit, Andrew said. 30 days. Good. And Celeste? Yes? This will get loud. I know, I replied. Yesterday was painful. Today will just be felt. The hotel room smelled of lavender and clean corners. I placed my purse on the table. Keys jingled softly. I ordered soup, turned on the television, set the volume exactly where I wanted it. No one turned it off. I slept like a person who had taken control of the wheel. The next morning I woke early, showered, wore the same clothes, but my posture had changed. At Andrew's office I signed the papers slowly, each signature steady. Roman, his junior associate, adjusted his tie. I'll serve the notice personally, he said, this morning. Good. I sat in the reception area. Waited. At 9:32 a.m., my phone vibrated. Lena. I answered on the fourth ring. Mama, what is happening? She cried. There's a man here. Papers. Derek is screaming. Ask him to lower his voice, I said, and read the document. Silence, then shakily, it says eviction, 30 days. Yes. Have you lost your mind? For the first time in years, I said, I found it. I ended the call. Andrew glanced at me. Utilities? He asked. I nodded, all in my name. He smiled faintly. That will be educational. At noon, I sat in a quiet restaurant, ordered lunch. Halfway through, my phone buzzed. Transaction declined, $85, butcher shop. I smiled, not with joy, with certainty. The first lesson had landed. That afternoon, the hotel receptionist called. Your daughter is downstairs. Tell her I'll be right down. I adjusted my blazer, checked my reflection. Not a victim, not a hero, just an owner. When the elevator doors opened, Lena looked at me like she was seeing someone new. We need to talk, she said. We are, I replied. Sit. She did. 30 days, I continued. No utilities, no cards, no shouting. You're humiliating us. No, I said softly. I'm ending a free trial. Her breath caught. If we leave, she whispered, he says he'll divorce me. I leaned forward. If your marriage survives only on my house and my money, I said gently, then it isn't a marriage. It's a hostage situation. She stared at me. The room, that night, alone in my hotel room, I placed my keys on the nightstand, listened to them settle. Tomorrow the real noise would begin, and for the first time I was ready. The house had never been quiet before. It was always full of something. Television noise, Derek's phone calls, Lena's hurried footsteps, the dishwasher running at odd hours like it was afraid to stop. But that morning, silence sat heavy, not peaceful, watchful. Derek stood in the kitchen staring at the eviction notice like it was written in a language he refused to learn. The paper trembled slightly in his hand, not fear, not yet, but disbelief. The kind that comes when a man realizes the rules have changed and no one asked for his permission. This is fake, he said finally. It has to be. Lena leaned against the counter, arms folded tight across her chest. Her eyes were swollen. She hadn't slept. It's from a lawyer, she said. He gave his card. Derek scoffed. Anyone can print letterhead. He crumpled the paper halfway, then stopped, as if suddenly remembering that destroying it wouldn't destroy the problem. She wouldn't do this, he muttered. She needs us. Lena didn't answer, because something inside her already knew the truth. At the hotel, I stirred my coffee slowly, watching the cream swirl into something unrecognizable. Andrew sat across from me, tablet open. "They'll escalate," he said calmly. "First denial, then anger, then manipulation." "And after that?" I asked. "Panic," I nodded. I had lived with panic quietly for years. It was their turn to feel it loudly. "You did the right thing leaving the house," Andrew continued. "Do not go back alone. Do not engage emotionally." "I won't," I said, "but I will observe." He smiled. "Of course you will." By noon, the messages started. "Derek, this is unnecessary drama." I ignored it. "Derek, we can talk like adults." Ignored. "Derek, Lena is devastated. Congratulations." I place my phone face down. When manipulation fails, guilt steps in. That afternoon, I drove past the house. I didn't stop. I didn't slow down. But I saw enough. The curtains were drawn. Derek's car was gone. Lena sat on the front steps, head in her hands. For a moment, just a moment, my foot eased toward the brake. Then I remembered the sound of the remote clicking. I kept driving. Derek came home angry, that kind of anger that fills rooms before words do. "Why didn't you stop her?" he demanded the moment he walked in. Lena looked up. "Stop who?" "My mother-in-law," he snapped. "Your mother, this stunt." "She didn't ask me," Lena said quietly. "That's the problem," Derek shouted. "She thinks she can make decisions without us." "Without you," Lena thought, but she didn't say it. Not yet. That evening the power went out. Not suddenly, not dramatically, just gone. The television cut mid-sentence. The lights dimmed, then vanished. Derek froze. "What did you do?" he demanded. "I didn't do anything," Lena said, standing up. The refrigerator hummed once, then stopped. "No," Derek whispered. He ran to the breaker panel, flipping switches wildly. Nothing. "Call the electric company," he snapped. Lena pulled out her phone, paused, scrolled, her account disconnected. Her breath caught. She turned it off," Lena said softly. Derek laughed, a sharp, brittle sound. "She can't do that." "She can," Lena replied. "It's in her name." Silence fell again, but this time it wasn't watchful. It was afraid. At 8:14 p.m., my phone rang. I answered without greeting. "Mama," Lena said, her voice shaking. "The electricity." "I know. You didn't have to do this." "I did," I replied, "because asking didn't work." Derek's voice thundered in the background. "Tell her she's making a mistake." "Put him on speaker," I said. Lena hesitated, then did. "This is harassment," Derek barked. "You can't just shut off utilities." "In my house," I said calmly, "utilities paid by me are a privilege, not a right." "You're punishing us. I'm restoring balance." "You're an old woman on a power trip," he snapped. "You'll regret this." I smiled. "Threats," I said gently, "are very useful in court. Please continue." The line went silent. I hung up. The next day, the water stopped. Cold first, then everything. Derek tried to shower before work. Nothing came out. He slammed the faucet handle. "Lena!" he shouted. She stood in the doorway, watching him with a strange calm. "This is your fault," he said. "You let her do this." "I didn't let her do anything," Lena replied. "You told her to go to her room." His mouth opened, closed. "You're choosing her over me?" he asked incredulously. Lena's hands trembled, but her voice didn't. "I'm choosing myself." The words surprised them both. By Friday, Derek hadn't gone to work. His phone buzzed constantly. He ignored it. Bills piled up on the counter. The house smelled stale without running water. "This is temporary," he kept saying. "She'll break." But deep down, he knew something worse than anger had replaced her compliance. Resolve. That afternoon, Roman knocked on the door again. This time, Derek opened it. "Second notice," Roman said politely. "Failure to vacate will proceed to court." Derek grabbed the paper. You think you're clever? He hissed. She won't win. Roman smiled professionally. She already has. He turned and walked away. Derek slammed the door. The house echoed. For the first time, it echoed back at him. That night, Lena packed a small bag. What are you doing? Derek asked. I'm going to stay with a friend, she said. You're abandoning me. I'm stepping away, she replied. There's a difference. He laughed bitterly. You won't last 2 days without this place. She looked around, the dark rooms, the silent appliances, the man unraveling in front of her. I already have, she said. She left. The door closed. This time Derek slammed it himself. At the hotel, I received a message. Lena, I'm sorry I stayed quiet, I typed back slowly. So am I. Then I added, but we're done being silent. Across town, Derek sat alone in the dark. The house no longer felt like his. The walls didn't listen. The silence didn't obey. And for the first time in his life, power wasn't something he could shout into existence. It had been documented, signed, and served. Derek didn't sleep that night. Not really. He lay on the couch because the bedroom felt too quiet, too exposed, staring at the ceiling fan as it turned lazily, powered by nothing but inertia and his denial. His phone sat face down on the coffee table, vibrating every few minutes with messages he refused to read. Work, bills, questions, all things he believed were beneath him. By morning, the house smelled wrong, stale, unused, like a place already half abandoned. Derek sat up slowly, rubbing his face. His reflection in the dark television screen startled him. Unshaven, eyes bloodshot, jaw tight with a tension he had never learned how to release without shouting. She'll fold, he muttered to the empty room. She always does. But even as he said it, something inside him whispered back. She already didn't. Across town, I sat in Andrew's office again, this time with a thicker folder in front of me. Documents have a sound when you open them, a whisper of certainty. Andrew slid a page forward. Property deed, original, sole ownership, no liens. I nodded. Another page. Utility accounts, 35 years uninterrupted. Another nod. And here, he said carefully, are the incident notes you filed during your employment years. I raised an eyebrow. Those are internal. They were, Andrew said, until you retired. Now they're personal records. I smiled faintly. For decades, I had written down what other people dismissed, raised voices, patterns of behavior, witness statements. Not because I wanted revenge, because I believed in records. Derek has a temper, Andrew continued. Has he ever threatened? I finished. Yes. I slid my phone across the desk. A transcript, typed verbatim. You'll regret this. Old woman on a power trip. You'll be sorry. Andrew read quietly, then looked up. He thinks this is about ego, he said. He hasn't realized it's about law. Yet, I replied.
By noon, Derek had decided on his next move. If intimidation hadn't worked, if guilt hadn't worked, then charm would. He showered at a gym, shaved, put on his best jacket. He drove to the hotel. Confidence returned with every mile. She's old, he rehearsed aloud. Emotional. She misses her daughter. He parked, straightened his collar, and walked into the lobby like a man who believed apologies were tools, not truths. The receptionist called my room. There's a gentleman here asking for you. Does he have an appointment? I asked. No. Then I don't have time, I said. A pause. He says he's family. So was I replied. Once. I hung up. 5 minutes later, my phone buzzed. Derek. This is getting ridiculous. I didn't respond. Derek. We can settle this like adults. Silence. Derek. Lena is hurting because of you. I set the phone down, finished my tea. Only when my cup was empty did I pick the phone back up. Any further contact will go through my attorney. I blocked his number. Derek stood in the lobby staring at his screen, the realization hitting him slowly, painfully. He had lost access, not just to the house, to the conversation, to control. The receptionist watched him carefully now. He felt it, the way authority evaporates when it's no longer backed by permission. He left without another word. That evening, Lena called. "I didn't know where else to go," she said softly. She was in my hotel room, sitting on the edge of the bed like a guest afraid to leave a mark. "You can stay," I said, "as long as you need." She nodded, tears slipping down silently. "I didn't protect you," she whispered. I sat beside her. "No," I said gently, "but you're learning." She looked up. "He says you're trying to destroy him." "I'm not," I replied. "I'm just no longer holding him together." The next week unfolded like a slow collapse. Derek's employer called, then emailed, then stopped. Unpaid leave, then termination. "Performance issues," the letter said. He laughed when he read it. A hollow sound. "They're all against me," he muttered. He drove to his brother's place, stayed 2 nights, got into an argument, left. He tried friends. They were busy. He tried his parents. They asked questions he didn't like. For the first time, Derek encountered a reality he couldn't dominate. People didn't owe him space. The court date was set for the following Tuesday. Andrew walked me through everything calmly. "He'll likely try to paint you as vindictive," he said, "or unstable." "I've been called worse," I replied. "Yes," Andrew smiled, "but never documented worse." The courtroom smelled faintly of disinfectant and old paper. I sat straight, hands folded. Derek sat across the aisle, leg bouncing, jaw clenched. When he saw Lena enter and sit beside me, something inside him cracked. "You're sitting with her?" he hissed. Lena didn't answer. The judge entered. Everyone rose. The room settled. And then, finally, Derek had to listen. Andrew presented first. Ownership, utility records, eviction notices. Clear, clean, undeniable. Then Derek's lawyer stood. "She's weaponizing motherhood," he argued. "This is retaliation." The judge looked at me. "Ms. Harris," she said, "do you wish to speak?" I stood. My voice did not shake. "For 4 years," I said, "I was told where I could sit in my own house, what volume I could watch television, when I was in the way." Derek shifted. "I paid every bill, maintained every system. I asked for respect." I paused. And when I was told to go to my room, I realized something important. The judge watched me closely. "Silence," I said, "had been mistaken for permission." Andrew submitted the transcript. The judge read, slowly, then looked directly at Derek. "Mr. Collins," she said, "do you deny making these statements?" Derek opened his mouth, closed it. His lawyer touched his arm. "No," he muttered. The judge nodded once. "That will be all." The ruling was swift. Eviction upheld. No extensions. 30 days final. Gavel, done. Derek stood frozen. Lena exhaled like she'd been underwater. I sat down, not triumphant, just finished. Outside the courtroom, Derek snapped. "This is your fault!" he shouted at Lena. "You betrayed me!" People stared. A bailiff stepped closer. Lena straightened. "No," she said clearly. "You did this." He turned to me, eyes wild. "You think you've won?" I met his gaze. "No," I said calmly. "I think you've learned." That night, back at the hotel, Lena sat beside me again. "I don't know who I am without him," she admitted. I took her hand. "You'll find out," I said. "That's the gift." Across town, Derek packed boxes in a house that no longer felt like a conquest. The walls didn't echo anymore. They waited. And for the first time, he understood something he'd never believed possible. Power can be taken away quietly. 30 days did not feel like time anymore. For Derek, they became a sentence. Each morning, he woke up in a house that no longer recognized him. The walls were the same. The floors hadn't moved, but ownership has a presence, and once it's gone, the air itself changes. He walked room to room like a man rehearsing goodbyes he refused to accept. The couch where he had sprawled like a king now felt borrowed. The kitchen counter where he had slammed his fist now felt judgmental. Even the silence had turned on him. Silence, he learned, was not empty. It was observant. I did not return to the house during those 30 days. That was intentional. Distance is not avoidance, it is control. I moved into a small apartment across town. Nothing extravagant. Clean lines, light-filled mornings, a place that didn't carry the echo of permission being asked. The first night, I slept with the windows open. No one told me to turn anything down. I breathed deeply, like someone learning how to exist again. Lena stayed with me. She was quieter than usual, but different now. Her silence wasn't submission anymore. It was processing. Healing, I would learn, doesn't announce itself. It simply begins. Derek cycled through the final stages of entitlement like clockwork. First came bargaining. He left a voicemail. I overreacted. Let's reset. We're family. I didn't respond. Then came victimhood. A long email. I lost my job because of this stress. You've ruined everything. I forwarded it to Andrew. Then came rage, poorly disguised as resolve. Another message, shorter this time. You think this is over? It's not. I smiled softly when I read it. Threats always sound strongest when there's nothing left behind them. The final week arrived quietly. No shouting, no confrontations, just boxes. Cardboard stacked in a house that no longer offered comfort. Derek packed alone. Friends had stopped answering. Family asked questions he didn't want to explain, because explaining would mean admitting something he had never believed possible. He was not entitled to what he did not earn. The morning of the move-out arrived at exactly 12:57 p.m. The court-appointed officer pulled up at 1 o'clock. Precise, professional, unemotional. I wasn't there. That mattered. Because closure doesn't require a witness. It requires completion. Time's up, the officer said calmly. Derek stood in the living room, hands on his hips, scanning the space like he expected the walls to intervene. They didn't. You don't have to do this, Derek muttered. The officer glanced at his clipboard. Yes, he said. I do. Derek picked up his final bag, stopped at the doorway, looked back once. For a moment, just a moment, something close to understanding flickered across his face. Then it vanished. The door closed behind him, not slammed, closed. The same way I had done weeks earlier. When Lena told me he was gone, she didn't cry. I thought I would, she said, but I feel lighter. That's because grief feels different when you choose yourself, I replied. That evening, I returned to the house. For the last time, ownership doesn't announce itself. It settles. I walked through each room slowly, not as someone reclaiming territory, but as someone releasing memory. The chair by the window, the kitchen table, the hallway where I had learned to walk quietly. I turned on the television, set the volume exactly where I wanted it, left it there. No remote clicked. Lena stood beside me. What happens now? She asked. I looked around the house one final time. This house has done its job, I said. Now we let it go. She nodded. We sold it 2 weeks later. No drama, no delays. Just signatures and silence. The money was divided cleanly, fairly, without bitterness. Justice does not require cruelty. Months passed. Life rearranged itself. Lena began therapy. She spoke about control, about fear disguised as love, about how quiet she had learned to become. I didn't know I was disappearing, she admitted one afternoon. I squeezed her hand. Most people don't, I said, until they're gone. She started working again, smiling again. Not the forced kind, the real kind. I volunteered at the county archive twice a week. Familiar work. Records. Truth preserved on paper. One afternoon, a young woman asked me how I stayed so calm. I thought about it. Because I learned the difference between patience and permission, I said. She wrote it down. A year later, a letter arrived. From the court. Divorce finalized. No contest. No appeal. No mention of me. I folded the letter once, then placed it in a drawer. Some stories don't need rereading. On a warm spring evening, Lena and I sat on my apartment balcony. The city hummed below. Alive. Unapologetic. I used to think strength was loud, she said. Like him. I smiled. Strength, I said, is knowing you don't need to be. She leaned her head on my shoulder. For the first time in years, neither of us felt small. Sometimes people ask if I regret it, if I miss my daughter living under the same roof, if I wish I had just endured quietly. I always answer the same way. I didn't lose my family, I say. I corrected the terms. I volunteered at the county archive twice a week. Familiar work. Records. Truth preserved on paper. One afternoon, a young woman asked me how I stayed so calm. I thought about it. Because I learned the difference between patience and permission, I said. She wrote it down. A year later, a letter arrived. From the court. Divorce finalized. No contest. No appeal. No mention of me. I folded the letter once, then placed it in a drawer. Some stories don't need rereading. On a warm spring evening, Lena and I sat on my apartment balcony. The city hummed below. Alive. Unapologetic. I used to think strength was loud, she said. Like him. I smiled. Strength, I said, is knowing you don't need to be. She leaned her head on my shoulder. For the first time in years, neither of us felt small. Sometimes people ask if I regret it, if I miss my daughter living under the same roof, if I wish I had just endured quietly. I always answer the same way. I didn't lose my family, I say. I corrected the terms.
Power doesn't always look like victory. Sometimes it looks like peace. Sometimes it looks like a remote control untouched. Sometimes it looks like a woman standing up, not to shout, but to sign. The house learned a new voice, and it was never loud.